Hi there, and as per my post yesterday, tonight, or today, if you're in a different part of the world, I'm going to be tackling about how you can raise issues with your boss without making things more difficult for you. And this is actually an incredibly delicate subject, a touchy subject. And one of the first words that pops into my mind is evaluating what the upside is and the downside is of raising this issue. Now, of course, if you're in a situation where you're feeling not respected, you're feeling bullied, or you're feeling like you're suffering from stress, then of course that's absolutely fundamentally something that would need to be addressed. So I'm going to go through a few issues about how you can raise things with your boss, and perhaps tell your boss that you're not feeling too happy at the moment, because I feel we all work really, really hard these days. We're all running around, very busy. And for me, any relationship is 100. So it's about you actually being able to step up and step into your career and that relationship with your boss. So it's not just one way. It's not like you're the employee and your boss gives you stuff to do, but actually you're an adult. You're in a dynamic in this relationship with somebody that you're probably spending a lot of time with. And I think, most decent bosses would want to know if something was going on with one of their employees and try and help them. And if they don't, well, then that becomes a separate Facebook Live and a different video and a different conversation and a different thought process for you. But this is really about, how do you address things just to make them that bit better for you? And, we've all had times like that. I've had times like that where I've had to take an issue to my boss, be that about workload or something else. And sometimes what I've found has happened is that when I've raised them with my boss, he or she's been able to find a solution for me that I couldn't see for myself, or they've been able to offer a different perspective, a new way of doing things that I hadn't even considered. And they'd also pointed out and given me some feedback around the fact that, oh, well, maybe you should do more of this, less of this. So it's been really constructive. When I've had great leaders and managers, I've been lucky enough to work with some great people that said, you know what, Sarah, for example, what you're doing doesn't have to be 100%. Make it 80%. 80% is fine. Do your best. It doesn't have to be perfect. Because I was finding I was working really, really long hours trying to get everything absolutely right. And sometimes there is no right. It's just your way of doing something versus somebody else, unless you've had feedback to the contrary, of course. But anyway, let's get into it. So we're going to cover off how you can go about it, before you start, how you then, some tactics to really help you sort of make that interaction as sort of go as well as you can, knowing that it is quite sensitive. So as I said before, evaluate the risk. If you're in a company, for example, and you're really happy, but you've been a bit discombobulated lately, a bit out of sorts, something's changed and it's not working for you, then and you're broadly speaking happy and you want to address it because you want to improve your situation, then yeah, absolutely address it in the right way. And we'll go into that in a bit, the right way and the wrong way to do it. But I mean, if you're in a role where you've consistently been unhappy, consistently been stressed, and you're not actually sure if you want to stay there, then really evaluate, well, is it worth me bringing this up? I mean, of course, if you're stressed and you're not feeling well, that's different. I'm not talking about that. But, evaluate, is it worth me bringing this issue right up, right here, right now? Or am I kind of at the point where I'm leaving anyway? Am I at the point where I'm working somewhere that has had a really poor culture for years and years and years and nothing has changed? We've given feedback and nothing has changed. So evaluate the risk and then evaluate, hang on a minute, where is my relationship with my boss at the moment? Evaluate how well you know your boss, what's the best way to approach them, the best time, what the best way. And good evening and good day if you've joined this live this evening, just talking about how to raise issues with your boss and evaluating it. So yeah, if you're happy, you're just going through a blip, you need some guidance, some advice, and you need to shift your role and you want to talk about your development, then yeah, absolutely go for it. But if it's an opportunity where you kind of want to be negative and be complaining, that's probably not going to go down very well. And if you're not happy where you are and you have been in an environment where it's been toxic, not very healthy for a long time, and you are kind of out of the door more or less anyway, then kind of evaluate, is it really worth me doing this? What's the upside for me doing this? And there's a great quote, which I'm sure many of you will have heard by Stephen Covey, which is like, begin with the end in mind. So think about, what is my end game? What is the end result or outcome I really, really want from this? And then start with the end and kind of work back. Because if the end is, I can't stand this place and I want to leave, then really, what's the point of addressing something if your foot's halfway out the door anyway? You've got one foot out the door. So evaluate that risk. Is it important enough? Is the issue important enough for you to be raising? Of course, if it's stress, if you're not being treated fairly, of course, that must be addressed. Is it something that you can address with another person? Is it something where you're having a difficult interaction with someone and you can address it with them directly? So showing your own self-leadership. Is it important enough to worry your manager? Because what you don't want to do is be seen as a complainer, as somebody that always brings negative issues to the table. So think about it. Is it important enough? Begin with the end in mind and think about how you are going to be professional and prepared for that conversation. Because I don't know about you, it doesn't matter what organisation you're in or where you are, generally in life. I mean, nobody likes moaners, and moaners get a reputation for being moaners. So be really careful that when you're going in, you've evaluated the risk, you've decided you want to bring something up with your boss. Make sure you are prepared. Think about, what some of the questions he might ask me, what some of the solutions that I've thought of for myself. Because he's likely to say, thank you for the thumbs up. He's likely to say, well, what have you done about it? What solutions do you have? And I don't know about you, but I learnt that early on in my career. I went in with a complaint to my boss and they were like, well, what do you propose we do? What do you propose you do? And I thought, oh, I haven't thought about that. Well, I only made that mistake once, I can tell you. So be professional, be prepared. Think about how you're coming across, if you're coming across in a professional, adult, assertive manner, rather than somebody that's just having a whinge for a whinge's sake, okay? So we've covered evaluating the risk of bringing this issue up, whether it's worth it, whether it's important enough, and how to come along professional and prepared. So write down those points that you want to make, anticipate those questions, go in with positive body language, dress the part for whatever that looks like in your organisation. If it's something that's been happening and it's a recurring issue, perhaps it's workload, perhaps it's somebody else trying to give you work from another department, make sure you've got evidence, not to give someone else a hammering, but just so they can say, well, can you give me specifics? Because any good leader or manager is going to say, could you give me an example of where that's happened? So make sure you've got that evidence. And also part of this sort of being professional and prepared is about being factual, rather than, well, that person just doesn't like me, we just don't get on. Because then that suggests, when I've been a manager or a leader, that you're part of the problem because you're going in with a negative mindset, you're going in with a closed mindset, you're not being open, you're not being flexible, you're kind of shutting the door. And I know it can be really, really difficult. And I know that many of us have probably been working with people that aren't the most positive to be around, or energy vampires, as I call them. So protect yourself from that energy, but make sure that you are being factual and not overly emotional about something. So I know we're not robots, but make sure it's part of that professional and prepared approach, that you are being evidence-based and factual. And be really clear what you're asking for. As I mentioned before, begin with the end in mind. What is it that you actually want? What's the ideal scenario? Now, what do you do if your boss... what do you do if your boss isn't receptive to what you're saying? Well, maybe it's the wrong time. Maybe it's the wrong place. Maybe it's not about you. Maybe your boss has got a lot on. And maybe you could suggest, look, would there be a better time for us to have this conversation? What time of day works best for you? Is it face-to-face? I would suggest face-to-face for anything difficult. Certainly at least Zoom or Skype, so you can see the other person's body language. But if they're not receptive, don't give up. Try again. Try a couple of times. And if you're not getting anywhere, then seek out a mentor at work or somebody else that can help talk you through what the other solutions are. You can, of course, and I've done it before, gone to HR in confidence if you've got a human resources team or other representatives, employee forums. You can go and talk to them in confidence, I'm sure. But do try and build and maintain that relationship with your immediate line manager. Now, these situations can be uncomfortable. As I've just mentioned to you, when I went in talking about, this was years ago when I had lots of work and my boss said, well, what do you suggest? I was like, crumbs, I haven't even thought about that. I hadn't come in with a solution. So really make sure that you are going in prepared, but also listening with an open mind, because sometimes if you're going in to discuss something, you might hear something about yourself that surprises you or that you don't like. I was coaching somebody recently and she said, you know, I've been told to like slow down. I think I'm being really encouraging and inspiring, and actually it's a bit too much for some of my colleagues. Now that doesn't mean that you pretend to be someone you're not. It just means sometimes we have to flex our styles, and there's nothing wrong with that. Life is all about learning and development, unless you are a robot, as I quite often say. So really think about, you know, the fact that you might go in and take some deep breaths before you go in. Take some deep breaths. You might get some feedback you weren't expecting. It may be uncomfortable, but this is a great opportunity to improve. And I go back to my first point, that I believe that any relationship, whatever it is, personal, business, we don't always get things right. Come on, we're not all perfect, are we? What's perfect anyway? But a lot of people say relationships are 50-50. I kind of feel, well, as much as I can, I want to make them 100-100. So, you know, go in and remember that your boss will, you know, if they're a good boss, will appreciate the feedback that you're giving them, particularly if you present it in the way that I'm saying, giving evidence, being factual, being prepared, creating solutions, thinking of the questions you're going to get asked beforehand, thinking about what is management's view likely to be of this problem, being, you know, as I said, making sure you've got all those questions ready and solutions ready and evidence about what you've done so far, and that your points are very, very, very clear. So those are some of the key points I wanted to mention today. So, you know me, I like a stat, I can't help it. It must be all those years in industry where I've been used to defending what I do in board meetings and presentations when I've been asking for budget. So I love to pull out the odd stat here and there, just so that you know that the stuff that I'm talking about is real. So this is about, you know, here's some stats around not being happy at work. And I'm sorry if it's a little bit cheerful as we're moving into the Christmas season. I promise my videos, you need to watch them. They're going to get a lot more jolly and a lot more festive in the coming weeks. So watch this space. But anyway, so last month, there was a 7th World Happiness Report, and it named Finland as the happiest country in the world. I thought I'd share that with you. The UK, if you're in the UK, guys, unfortunately, we didn't make the top 10. But we did get into the top 20. So we're in the top 20, but apparently Finland's the happiest country in the world. So I thought I'd start off with that little fun fact. The reason I've shared that stat is that when you dive into it a bit more, there was a survey from Sodexo, who's a big facilities management company. They do all sorts of things, middle office functions for companies, I think. I don't know if I'm using the right terminology. But anyway, they did a massive survey in the UK, and only 12% of UK workers are completely happy in their job. Nightmare scenario. Who wants to be happy for all that time we're at work? So that's why it's really important to realise that as much as you might be an employee of a business, this is a two-way dialogue. If you're in a really solid company, or a company that says that they want feedback, they want people to feedback, they want to hear from you, that there's leadership, talent development programs. If you're in a great company like that, then they're going to want to know, and if you don't tell people, if you don't tell your boss in the ways that I've described, professionally, prepared, positive, that you're unhappy, then you're not really giving them an option to do anything about it. So there we go. So the other fact that I found in doing my bit of research is that if an employee is engaged, they're much more likely to stick around and advocate for the company too. So any of you out there that are leaders, it's not just about your employees' health and well-being and the good performance of your team. it's also about the fact that if you've got a happy employee, of course they're going to say nice things about your company. They are not going to go onto Glassdoor and criticise your management style or the company's management style. So, you know, if you're a leader, a manager, and you're unhappy, speak to your boss, because you need to be happy for your team to be happy and to get that endorsement from outside as well. So, I think if you've not been happy, again, part of evaluating it is really thinking about how long has it been going on for? How long has this situation been going on for? What have you tried before? And if you've tried lots and lots of things and you feel that it's a cultural piece around the fact that the company isn't willing to listen or make changes as necessary and your health is suffering, then of course that may be a different decision. But think about as well, as part of the evidence base I was talking about, thinking about, well, why am I unhappy? And really, whilst going in positive, have a look at your own behaviours. You know, is there a way that I'm engaging with people or talking to people? Is there a way that I'm approaching my work that is I'm kind of creating this situation? I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I know early on in my career I was working really, really long hours, and then I suddenly realised, well, nobody else is. This is me. This is down to me. I'm not managing my workload. I'm trying to be a bit of a hero here. And what's that all about? So I was creating my own unhappiness. So that's what I mean about thinking about your own solutions. So, so lots of tips here. The other thing you might want to think about, and I alluded to it briefly, was really picking the time that you want to speak to your boss. So if your boss has an all day long weekly financial meeting, and they're usually running around getting the figures ready, or, you know, there's something they have to do and you know they're going to be busy, don't pick that time. Maybe look at a mid-morning during the midweek, not maybe a Monday, not a Friday, but somewhere in that middle part of the week, depending on what time zone you're in, of course. Not last thing on a Friday, but kind of understand your boss's patterns, and you should be doing that anyway, so I hate using the word should, but anyway, it's a good idea to do that. Understand your boss, because understanding leads to greater understanding, okay? And just, as I said, take deep breaths and listen, because it can be a difficult conversation. So quite a lot this evening. So what I've covered this evening is how to raise issues with your boss. We've talked about evaluating the risk. How do you decide? And that's one of the first points in the video, so you can go back and watch that and understand what that point was all about. Evaluating whether it's now, when do you do it? Is it worth doing? What is the risk? What's the benefit? We've talked about starting with the end in mind, really thinking about what is your end result. If your end result is to go in and have just a load of negativity and moaning, I'd suggest that's not the way to do it. So think about the end in mind, your optimal solution. And then think about, you know, have you got the right person to talk to? Can your manager do something? I tend to think it's always, you should really go through your boss, to use the word should again. It's a good idea to work through your boss first, you know, they are directly responsible for you. Be factual, give evidence, create solutions, be prepared for the questions you might get asked, including, what have you done about this already? That one left me stumped 20 odd years ago. It was like nothing. So create, you know, and from this conversation, you might get some really, really great results, some great feedback. Might be uncomfortable feedback, but feedback you maybe need to receive. Ask for evidence of that feedback as well, by the way. Create a plan, create a goal with your boss about, okay, this is where we want to get to, this is how we're going to get to it, this is what we're going to do. They might ask you to go away and create an action plan, by the way. I have had that before. Remember, it may feel uncomfortable, but this is a chance to improve. Both of you own the relationship. It's not one person's responsible, one person isn't. You both own this relationship 100%. So really sort of think of that and think about having that healthy, positive dialogue. Be positive, go in with solutions, be factual. Don't go in moaning about other people, because you will get a reputation as being a moaner and being negative, and that is not going to help your career. Businesses and organisations like solutions, not problems, because your manager, your leader is going to be busy enough as it is. Be calm, ask for help. I mean, the other thing you could think of is whether you do it in the office or somewhere else. Can you go to the canteen? Could you go to a coffee shop? Because I know it can be nerve-wracking, you know, at whatever stage we are in our career, to raise things. If they're not receptive, try again, try a different time. Try a different time and get some advice from somebody else if you need that. Pick your time, pick the best time for your boss, understand your boss's patterns, don't just take them hostage straight away. And then make sure you understand, as I said, what's the end in mind, what are you not happy about now, and what do you want to get to. So so that's a few tips there about how to raise with your boss that you're not happy, how to do something about your situation in a professional manner. Doesn't matter what sector you're in, whether you're in an agency, public sector, private sector, whether you're a leader managing your own teams. It's really important to be positive and solutions focused. I think that's what gets rewarded in business as far as I can see. So covered a lot of ground, and by all means replay this video, share this video with friends and family if you feel it may be beneficial to them. Keep your eye out for future Facebook Lives. I'm going to be doing once a week, usually on a Tuesday. So watch out for some festive Facebook Lives coming up. And if there is a subject that you would like me to cover, whether that's about how to, change your own mindset, how to tackle a problem in your career, or perhaps another area of your life, then drop me an email, a direct message, or leave a comment, and I can cover that. That's no problem. I've got my private Facebook career coaching group. You're welcome to join that. So if you'd like to do that, then just it's called Catapult Your Career, and there's a post pinned at the top of this page where you can learn how to join that and get exclusive hints, tips and content that you wouldn't receive anywhere else. Okay, so that's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour about how to raise things that you're not happy with. Look forward to hearing how you get on with that, and have a great rest of the day, have a great evening, and I'll catch you very soon. Take care. Bye.